Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Tough loss in Washington, and I'm pretty convinced that the Raiders may have the worst O-line in the league. And of course, the guys are going to break down whether or not that is true. So excited for today, lots to get to. And Raider Nation, let's get into it.
Raider Nation, don't send up the panic flag. It's only week 3. Let's not try to have major changes across the board. Yes, some things do need to change. We'll talk about that more on the Squad Show.
Raider Nation, send up the panic flag. No, I'm kidding. We will talk about the offensive line. We will talk about Ashton Jeanty and not panic too much, but how does things get better moving forward? Again, week 3 with a very winnable game coming up on Sunday.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Thank you so much for rocking with us this morning. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. I'm Chantel Chand, joined alongside Lincoln Kennedy, or some know him as Professor Kennedy, also Q Myers, and we're happy to be here with you today. We want to thank you so much if you're making this your first listen of the day, or if Q's Locked On Raiders was your first listen of the day. Regardless, we appreciate you supporting the channel. And remember, if you hit that like and subscribe button, that helps the channel grow. You can also find us on the audio side. So wherever you get your shows and podcasts, leave a rate and review. You can always do that as well to help the channel grow. We do appreciate you, Raider Nation. And before we get into everything today, we got to give a quick shout out to our good friends of the show, our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, you heard Q talk a little bit about what's on the rundown. Later on in the show, in the final segment, Q and Link will be answering some of your questions, or if you have comments, we'll put them up on the screen. So Raider Nation, get them in the chat right now. Also, if you're listening to this later on, you can always drop in comments later, and we might be able to get to those questions in the next episode. We're going to be talking about special teams and defense. We're also going to be talking about Ashton Jeanty, because I feel like, a lot of criticism towards him, but not necessarily his fault. And that's because in one whole entire segment, we're going to take a deep dive into the O-line, and the guys are going to break it down. We got to take a whole segment, you guys. There's a lot to talk about, and a lot that Pete Carroll has said too. But first, guys, we got to start off with the Raiders in Washington. This was a game where they were taking on, a team that didn't have their starting quarterback, but had Marcus Mariota. And we know that Marcus Mariota, still a very good backup quarterback in this league. But it was a game that I think we were all very positive heading into when you think about Washington's injuries and just not a good performance from the Raiders from top to bottom, guys. You guys are saying don't hit the panic button. I was kind of hitting the panic button. I know it's just weak.
I said that.
Yeah.
And, switch things up, man. I had to make it a little bit fun, right?
It's all good. It's all good. Here's the thing, Chantel and Q. Look, when you look at it for 2 weeks in a row, the Raiders had the unfortunate incident at starting off wrong. And the Charger game was interception, first play of the game. And this game was a big kickoff return. If you saw this past weekend as a whole, and just stepping aside from the Raider game, you saw this past weekend as a whole, you saw how special teams, more than any other season, came alive in 1 week, literally. There were so many games that were decided by special teams. That shows you, that just proves how important it is and how people are getting used to this whole dynamic kickoff BS, all this stuff. There are going to be people who will be better.
That's how you really feel, big fella.
Yeah, well, trust me. It's not broke, don't fix it. But I mean, everyone wants to be dynamic, anyways. So the way I look at it is the Raiders get off to a bad start, and then they have trouble catching up. Here's the issue, and we'll break it down. And Q, I'd love to get your take. Before you send up the panic flag, everyone wants to sit there and say about, well, JPJ should be the starting center and stuff like that. Pump your brakes, okay? This is why I say let the coaches do the coaching. Here's the thing. If JPJ can't make it through a practice, how can he make it through a game?
That's a good point.
So you don't know the thing. I believe that JPJ is the most ferocious offensive lineman we have in that locker room. I believe that. I do. I do believe he'd be an asset on the field. I do believe that. I do. But I can't trust that he'll be available because he has concussion issues. So I can't put him out there, keep my fingers crossed, hope for the best, hopefully he can make it through a game without running into the possibility in my mind as a coach. Well, what if I lose him for the rest of the year? What if he can't go play again? I mean, I know that's the inherent risk that you take when you're playing football, but it's still the fact that you're dealing with that, and you know that you're dealing with that. So what do you try to do? You try to bring Alex Kappa along because that's your next best opportunity. You know, after that, there's a significant drop off in the talent level and the ability of this offensive line. The younger guys aren't ready yet. They're just not ready yet. And you don't. And the last thing I want to do is throw them to the fire, because if Geno Smith gets hurt in the efforts, then we're really up a bad creek. You know what I mean? So there's practical reasons to be realistic, and don't panic because it is still early in the season. But we talked about this before the season started, guys. I told you after a month, I would tell you where this team was. And when we were talking about the schedule and the predictability, I thought the first month the Raiders would be fortunate to come out 2-2, which they will be. They can make it happen to finish the first. When you look at the level competition when they play, which can happen, but if they can make it 2-2, that's not a bad start. Not a great start, but not a bad start.
Well, that's the thing about it. I think if everyone said just before the actual play on the field started, you say, okay, after 4 games, the Raiders would be 2-2. I think everyone would accept that. For me, the big disappointment from Sunday's loss was the fact that I thought going into the season with Jaden Daniels, hey, that's going to be a juggernaut. That's going to be a machine there in Washington. When he goes down, and I don't want to take anything from Marcus Mariota, but he's not Jaden Daniels. Now, he is a guy that is very dynamic. He has legs. He can throw the ball. We know that. We saw that on Sunday. But they were down a tight end. They were also down a wide receiver. So I thought this was an opportunity for the Raiders to steal one of those games, right? And we've talked about stealing the games. You win the games you're supposed to win, the ones that you're expected to win, and then you steal 1 or 2 along the way. And then when it's all said and done, you get to the month of December, you're looking up like, wow, I'm in really good position, might be able to steal a playoff spot. That's how I looked at this game on Sunday, as a huge opportunity for the Raiders to take one against an opponent that's in my opinion, in a higher weight class than they are. And obviously that didn't happen. And again, that very first play, that Deebo Samuel 69-yard kickoff return, that's one of those. And Lincoln, you were on the sideline, and the one thing that you probably never wanted to hear at the beginning of the game is sudden change, sudden change, sudden change. Like, you never wanted to hear that because something went terribly wrong. And I know it wasn't a sudden change, but what it was a huge momentum shift at the very beginning of the game. Uncle Mo was clearly on Washington's side and really never gave it back.
You know, I think for me, so it was a game when we take a look at the schedule, I thought the Raiders were going to lose that game. And I think we all had them going 2-2 in the first month of the season. I think it was just the effort for me. Like, to go into Washington when you're facing a backup quarterback and then you're getting smacked around the entire game. They made it interesting near the end. But let's be serious here. That was a very, very tough game to watch. And so for me,
here's the thing, Chantel. Let me just say this real quick. You played sports. Q's played sports. Every coach that I've ever played for has always said the same thing pregame. Let's start fast. Let's get out there and make things happen. Every coach I played for. So when you talk about the last 2 games starting off in the hole, well, as far as momentum, the Charger game, they never got any offensive momentum going because they started off in the hole and just was set back with the interceptions, so on and so forth. Very similar to Washington. The biggest issue for the Raiders here and against the Commanders was that the defense couldn't come through when they needed to. They couldn't get off the field. They couldn't tackle. Washington ran all over them. I was interested to see what Kingsley would do with Marcus Mariota, because I felt that look, he's been on 5-6 teams in his journeyman. He's been a true backup quarterback, but there have been times I've seen him, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, accuracy wise. Right. And to me, the first half of play he did everything humanly possible to keep the Raiders in the game.
Yeah.
Fumbled the ball. Yep. Put it in dangerous territory. The Raiders should have came up with at least 2 interceptions in the first half, if you ask me. Ball was all over the place, but because they were able to run it and he was able to use his legs, it kept the defense on their heels. But never mind the poor angles that the defense that collectively took to stop the run. They had 2 no-name running backs come out of the woodwork and make a name for themselves. Yeah, and this falls in line with what I said about these geriatric quarterbacks coming in and playing well against the Raiders. I don't care who you are. There's a reason why they're in the National Football League.
Right.
They rushed for over 200 yards on the Raiders. I think altogether the total was 201 yards, over 150 yards in the first half. They ran all over this Raiders defense. And I think coming into this game, a lot of people were satisfied with what we saw on the defense and the way the Raiders are built. You know, you guys have said they're built to stop the run. Right. And yeah. So what were you guys' takeaways just in terms of the effort? Because Pete Carroll said in a presser that he feels, and this, I felt like it was kind of cool for him to take the heat on this, but he said, I didn't have them prepared as well as I thought. Like he took that.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And honestly, I didn't think that the travel and the short week was going to be as major because it was early in the season. I felt like these guys were still fresh, only being in week 3. But clearly it has something to do with it, not to mention Washington being off as long as possible. And, you know, I like to look at things and make reasons and talk about reasons as opposed to excuses. And I know short week and lack of rest and them having extra rest sounds like a total excuse. But Pete Carroll alluded to the point that, you know, he didn't have them prepared as far as trying to basically save their legs throughout the course of the week and just get them ready to go out there and play on Sunday. And he said he didn't do it right. So he took that one on the chin. Like you said, he took responsibility for that and just said that the approach that he took during practice, the practice week with the team, was the wrong approach. So again, I don't want to make excuses, but I feel like that had a lot to do with it. He was trying to overthink things and try to make it, I guess, fit with whatever his team was going through after an emotional game on Monday night against a division opponent in the Chargers, and obviously made the wrong decisions.
I've always said coaches coach, players play.
Right.
This, to me, this was not, I see what Pete Carroll did, and I understand why he did it. Being the head coach, you're supposed to take the blame, just like the quarterback. But this wasn't a coaching problem. This was an effort issue. Okay. This was an effort issue. This was when you have one guy breakdown in the secondary and there's a long pass play for a touchdown. That's a breakdown. You see, This is a breakdown where you're supposed to take a proper angle to make a tackle and you miss, or you don't wrap up. You just try to shoulder bump. That's not a coaching thing. That's an effort instance. And those throughout the game. The you know, when we try to break this thing down, and I'll give my insight, my 2 cents about what I think the offense should do, but there needs to be made changes in not only style of play, but also need to be changes in overall effort out of the collection of these guys, not individuals every now and then. I need a collection of effort. I need a high-rise effort. There's no reason why this Raiders team, what we've seen in the first couple weeks, should have gone back to Washington and got their ass handed to them. There's no reason for it. And they did. They did. Giving up 200 yards rushing to a Commanders team that barely has a running back, has a shamble of an offensive line. You gave up 200 yards rushing to them? No. That's an effort. It's not coaching. I understand why you take it on, Coach.
Right.
But that's effort.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, the Raiders were only giving up 70 yards on the ground per game, right? Again, their strength of this defense was being able to wrap up, not miss tackles, stop the run. So let me ask you, Link, why would the effort go from being at a 8 to a 10 to being a 4 or 5 in a short amount of days? Like
what the Raiders got away with, what the Raiders got away with in the first couple of games is in a lot of ways being lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. This game, they got exposed because there were times where, especially the linebackers, were shooting the gaps, not coming over to tackle. Mm-hmm. If you shoot a gap, everyone knows if you penetrate from that position and you don't make the tackle, there's no one behind you. Right. It's a big void. It's a big gap. And that's what the Commanders were doing to the Raiders. They were exposing their second level. They isolated everything from the line of scrimmage. They took up everything in the line of scrimmage with their blocking scheme, which puts you one-on-one with the safety or somebody in the hole that wasn't really ready, prepared to tackle or to make the tackle.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, and I think the whole entire game from top to bottom, the whole entire team struggled. And I think that was probably the most surprising thing, right? The offense, the defense, special teams. Like, this was not a good game. It kind of took me back, and I had PTSD when the Raiders played the Broncos in 2008, and Jay Cutler, like, went off in that game. It was like 41-14, and that's like one of the worst games I've ever seen. And I felt exactly the same that I did in 2008 in terms of effort. Obviously, the Raiders are supposed to be a better team, and so that's why I think that a lot of Raider Nation is upset, because they don't want to see their team get pretty much smacked around in a game against a backup quarterback, which we've seen before, right? Like this is what happens. So coming up in the next segment, guys, we're going to be talking about the O-line. We're going to be breaking it down. Then we're going to be talking about a little bit about Ashton Jeanty. And the final segment, Q and Link are going to be answering some of your questions. I already see some great questions in the chat. So Raider Nation, if you're in the chat, drop your questions and we will be getting to them in the last segment of the show. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I personally love it because it actually has no sugar, so you're not going to feel that crash as well. And that's one of the benefits of this 5-hour energy shot. Plus, with all the different flavors, it tastes actually pretty legit. Does not taste like medicine. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. And remember, we appreciate you listening to us, making us your first listen of the day, or accuse the Locked On Raiders, which comes on before this show. Guys, we got to jump into the O-line. And I think everyone, Q, you probably touched on this on your show. I got to go back and listen to your show. But I think everyone's waiting for you guys to talk about this together, right? Because you guys are the ultimate duo for this. The O-line, and I said it, this has to be one of the worst O-lines in the league, you know, and they're very, very tough to watch. Q, go ahead.
No, Lincoln said it great last week, you know, when you asked about the O-line, he said, guys, I'm not going to lie, I'll say it for all of us. I'm very concerned. Well, the reason why he was very concerned, it reared its ugly head on Sunday, right? And look, one of the things I didn't do, and I shouldn't do it, shame on me, I didn't give credit to Washington for being a hell of a defensive line and a defensive unit in general. I mean, they've got HOFers on that squad, right? Von Miller is the easy gold jacket. Bobby Wagner is going to have a gold jacket. Deron Payne, I'm the guy that yells Roll Tide for no reason. I have no affiliation, but I understand. He's a hell of a defensive lineman as well. So I got to give those guys credit, but they also exposed the mess out of the Raiders, right? I mean, Ashton Jeanty ran the rock 17 times, and 11 out of his 17 carries, he was met at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage by a defender. He had six clean times that he was actually able to try to get something going on the ground. And in those 6 times, he did. And the other times, he was trying to make chicken salad out of you-know-what, right? It wasn't really working at all. And so the offensive line has clear holes in it, maybe getting JPJ back this week. If in fact he does get back this week, obviously has to wait and see. I don't want to assume anything. I assumed he was going to play last week and he didn't. So we'll see what happens, but maybe that helps out a little bit. But all in all, man, this is a work in progress and it's slow grinding, it seems like, for this offensive line.
You know, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to displace a person when you're run blocking. Okay. And more times than not, the most the coaches are looking for is sort of a stalemate. Don't get pushed back. We'd love for you to get pushed forward when you're running football, but don't get pushed back. When you get penetration, it denies all the run game. Don't care who you have. Penetration kills unless you're running trap blocks. But even when the Raiders were running trap blocks, they weren't getting any push on the trap blocks. There was no push. The fact is that the trapper met with the defender, stalemated in a hole, which created a big backup, a big pileup in the hole. You can't hit the hole. Much to Q's point, the weakness of this run game has been that Ashton or whoever's back there carrying the football is making cuts in the backfield the moment they get the football. Now, there are a couple of points that I have issues that I'll just share with that first and foremost. I don't like the point of inception. What I mean by that is I do not like them going out of pistol, which is a shotgun quarterback with a running back 3 yards behind. The reason why is now with that running back 3 yards behind the quarterback who's set at 5 yards of shotgun, that puts you 8 yards off of the line of scrimmage. You have 8 yards that you have to catch up before you get to the line of scrimmage. There are so many things that can happen. More times than we've seen than not, it's been penetration. When the Raiders have been able to buy the offensive line or buy the line of scrimmage, they've had successful runs. But when they've had penetration or when you had running backs, the moment they get the handoff, having to make the cut, making a guy miss here, making a guy miss there, for whatever, miscommunication, guys shooting the gaps, penetration, however you want to break it down. It does not work. This is not a physical team yet. Right. The Raiders are not a physical team yet. They do not have it down. They're still trying to figure themselves out. That's why I'm so against lineup changes. Because the thing is, you make a lineup change probably around the bye week because you have some extra time to see how things settle. Right now, the Raiders don't even have a true starting five. So how can they make changes? Go to whom? You want to try off people off the street? Okay, so be it. And I heard that's probably what they're going to be doing. Bringing in a few free agents to try them. Until you get them in the lineup and see what they're going to do, you have no idea how they're going to do with the rest of the guys.
Right.
So before you go shopping and you see the cupboard is somewhat bare, here's the thing. You're going to have to put up with it until the next payday because there's really nothing out there that's just flowing. You look at the rest of the offense. There were a lot of offensive lines that had bad games this weekend. There were a lot of offensive lines. I'm not going to go so far as say the Raiders are the worst in the National Football League, but I think they're pretty bad right now. They have to get it because they can't run the ball. They can't pass the ball. There's so many damn 3 and outs. I lose track.
Yeah.
But that's where they are right now.
Yeah. Go ahead, Q.
I was just going to say, what's wild about the running game in general in the NFL this year? Ashton Jeanty is only 83 yards behind being like a top 5 running back in the league right now.
So we are going to get into Ashton Jeanty. I will say that. Yeah. So there's hope, but I also feel like, there's criticism that isn't deserved in terms of Ashton Jeanty because of this O-line, right? So this is my question to you guys, and you guys would be better off answering this. Is there a way they can fix this? Because that's the only thing that I'm thinking. Because I've never played like tackle football or played on an O-line except for in Madden, right? So can they actually fix this with the guys that they have? Because like you've said before, Link, it's like a guy on the O-line. It's hard to find a solid guy on the O-line. Like like people in the NFL in the league want solid dudes on the O-line, but they're also really hard to find. Unless you're paying a lot of money for them, and some O-lines are paid very well, not the Raiders, right? They're not investing a lot of money into this O-line. So it's like, can they fix the O-line? That's the only thing I'm concerned about as a fan. Is it doable, guys, for them to fix this?
Yes, it can be fixed. What has to happen, Chantel Q, what has to happen is that the Raiders have got to find at least 4 staple runs that they can do no matter against anyone. And it doesn't matter what defenses play, 4 staple runs that we know that we can rely on. And they need to establish that. They don't have that yet. There's not enough of a trial size to sit there and say, okay, we're going to do 32 gap here. We're going to do 46 blast there, 47 blast. We can run those plays on anybody. You can't. And I'm recalling back to my most successful days as a player. We had a handful of plays that we could call no matter what. I could look in the huddle and see the personnel. Okay, I know where we're running. And if we had audibles, you would change it, adjusting accordingly. But you had runs, you had staple runs. The Raiders don't have a staple offense right now. They're still trying to figure it out. Their intermediate passing game is a lot to be desired. You stop throwing up prayers when you're just trying to hunt for something deep. You look at the way the game ended against the Commanders. Well, that was junk in the second half because the Commanders already knew they had to win.
Yeah.
So those are junk touchdowns. Not taking anything away from Tre. They thought he had a phenomenal game, but they need more than that. They need more of that. They also have to have more separation from the receivers when they're out running routes. The short answer to your question, can it be fixed? Yes, it can be fixed. How's it going to be fixed? More snaps, more reps. Go out there and you dig into somebody's butt. You get after their tail as a coach, or you come over the sideline. Look, you got to pick it up. You call out people specifically. Players hold other players accountable. That's how you become accountable to your teammate. More importantly, that's how you become more of an investment out there in the football field, because now you have a collection of accountable players that want to play together.
Yeah, I mean, it can be fixed. To Lincoln's point, it has to, it obviously is going to require reps. There's not a tree that they can go out back and pick out a bunch of offensive linemen and bring them in and say, okay, this is going to be your offensive line. So, I mean, like Pete Carroll said to us yesterday, this is who we have, this is who we're working with, and we're moving forward. Now, the question that I have is, and real quick, the fact that they lost JPJ after week 1, that takes away from that continuity, right? I mean, him going down after one game, all of a sudden Alex Kappa being put in there, and he wasn't in training camp or most of preseason, and so now he's being thrown into the mix and feeling like he can go out there and gel with the players and the rest of the offensive linemen because he's a veteran, and obviously that didn't work very well. But Lincoln, I did want to ask you, because look, this is the same 5 that are out there that was out there last year. Now the interior is all switched around. Parham's not playing the right guard spot. JPJ's not at center, and Meredith is not at left guard. Is there a chance at all at some point in this season, I'm not saying right now, but at some point, that this offensive line and this coaching staff and team says, yeah, let's just do what we did. Let's just do what this team did last year. Let's put these guys back in the position because it seems like they thrived a little bit better at those spots.
You might want to do that, but to be exact, Dylan Parham isn't playing actually great. Meredith missed a couple of calls in this past game. I mean, there's a collection of minuses throughout the line all game.
Would you say they did better than last year? Even
they did. They got better towards the end of the year. That's what I'm talking about playing in.
Gotcha.
Now, another way of answering your question is when would be the optimal time to change it up? Now's not the right time to change it up.
Right.
Because you're in the midst of the season, you're still getting used to yourself. Exactly. Yeah. You're still getting that play in familiarity with other players. I would say around the bye week. And I know that's a little late. I'm hoping that it's not a losing record, but that's why I started the show by saying, don't toss up the panic flag just yet, because there are a bunch of people who are reaching for things. Well, let's put these guys in. Let's put these guys in. The 2 young draft choices, they're not ready.
Right.
They're not ready. They're not ready. You can't put them against the Von Millers out there. And I know, for what it's worth, you can sit there and talk about the tackles. They haven't been exemplary. I'm here to tell you that they need to take shotgun away from this offense. You need to have Geno Smith take from under the center every single time, because that changes up the trajectory of those defensive ends attacking you. That's the reason why Geno Smith, the moment he gets the football, there are people in his face, because the tackles who control the width of the pocket are getting collapsed back because they're chasing speed up the field. They're turning their shoulders and chasing speed up the field. That's why the pocket is collapsing around the sides on him before they collapse in the middle. And Geno's not the type of quarterback who steps up in the pocket. A lot of times he wants to step out where he has open space. And those defensive ends and those outside linebackers are preventing that.
In terms of the O-line, and, we're taking a deep dive into it right now. For JPJ, now Pete Carroll says that there's still competition at right guard. He didn't really think about changing anything else on that O-line based off what he said at the presser. And that kind of coincides with what you're saying, Link, in terms of
Meredith,
they have to.
Here's the thing, Chantel. Meredith just started playing center. This was his first year.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he's missed calls. I'm not giving him, but those panic people out there that are sitting there saying, put in JPJ as center. What is that going to do?
Right.
It's not going to change anything. If he can't play, that changes something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
no matter if it's a center or right guard or whatever, to have him out there is the first thing they need to solve. Okay. It's not working with Alex Kappa, in my opinion. But we're only 2 game size, and maybe he'll get better. I don't know. I just know these guys need more reps. They need to come downhill. They need to practice running more against this defense. Needs to work against run defense. I mean, these are things that have to happen. You only get this with snaps, Chantel and Q. That's what I'm saying. You only get this with snaps.
I think it's just that I thought at one point, I know they decided not to play JPJ even though he was active, and it's because he didn't get a lot of burn in practice and whatnot. So they decided to go with Alex Kappa, also with the continuity from last week. However, at some point in the game, I was like, shouldn't they just put him in? Because it was that bad. And Dylan Parham wasn't doing anything out there. No. He was probably one of the most frustrating players to watch in that line, because it's like he was just there not doing anything. And so I think in terms of effort for the O-line, I think a lot of Raiders fans are upset about that as well. But you guys said that this is fixable, that they shouldn't make any crazy changes anytime soon. They really can't, right?
There's
not much they can do.
That's just it. I mean, what do you have to do? It's not right. Look, if JPJ works himself back in the starting lineup, I can care whether he's at center or guard. I know they need him.
Right.
That's what I'm going to say. I know they need him, but also know they need to be able to rely on him, guys. You need to be able to depend on him. I need to know he's going to be available not only for the Bears, but I need to know he's going to be available for the Colts, for the Titans, for everybody else throughout this season. Not just one game here or there, because then that still ruins the flow of what this offensive line is trying to achieve.
Okay, and so I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but I have to say this for Raider Nation, and because I was hitting the panic button. The crazy thing that I was talking about, Link and Q, was should they if the O-line is this atrocious against the Bears, who, by the way, will try to run it on them. That's going to be a team that's going to be trying to run it on the defense. But at the same time, if they're this atrocious against the Bears, should Pete Carroll's son be on the hot seat?
Wow.
I mean,
that would be the crazy. That would be the crazy thing.
That's going to be, I mean, that's already been like the easy conversation. And, you know, does he deserve to be the offensive line coach? Is he only there because he's Pete Carroll's, you know, son? Look, I mean, he's been an OC. He's been an offensive line coach in college, both at Arizona and at Washington, assistant offensive line coach there in Seattle. I think he's got some chops in the game. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And he's got Joe Philbin, who's a veteran offensive line coach as well, there in his back pocket that's helping assist him. So I don't really think, I mean, Lincoln says it all the time, coaches coach, players plays. I think it's more of a player's execution as opposed to the coaches not coaching it up correctly.
I will say this. I don't know enough about Brendan to say whether or not he's capable. I mean, he coached at my alma mater, and I know that in a year or so, but I'm not saying that he's capable. I'm not also going to say he's incapable, but I know he's the run game coordinator for this offense from what I've heard. And I don't know how that plays in. I don't know enough about his mind to say whether or not he's capable or not. I just know with the product that he's dealing in front, things that they've tried hasn't worked. Because like I said, even this past week against the Commanders, they tried to do a lot of trap blocking, which takes the aggression of defenses, the man defenses away when you try to trap block. But when you trap block, especially at the line of scrimmage, you got to move people's asses. You can't just have them sitting in the hole. You can't create a stalemate. Now you have a pileup on I-5. How are you supposed to get through? You know what I mean? Right. So you gotta have that way where you're brushing that out. And it does not happen if by the way this current running game is going.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to have to make some adjustments heading into this Bears game. A lot of Raider Nation is upset. I'm upset. I'm just going to call him Pete Carroll's son. I'm not going to mention his first name until the O-line gets a little bit better, guys. But coming up in the next segment, we're going to be talking about Ashton Jeanty, but because Ashton Jeanty's success really relies on the O-line. So that's coming up in the next segment. The guys are going to be breaking that down along with Geno Smith's performance in this game compared to a Monday Night Football against the Chargers. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The reason why I like using FanDuel is that you don't actually have to wait a long time to get whatever you win. So if you win betting on games on Sunday, you get your money pretty much right away. You don't have to wait like a couple of hours. So that's why I like the FanDuel app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. In the final segment, the next segment, Q and Link are going to be answering some of your questions. So I've seen some good ones in the chat. If you're in the chat right now, Raider Nation, leave some comments for the guys. And we have to talk about Ashton Jeanty now. And Q, you said a crazy stat that he's not actually far off from being a top 5 back in the league based on his numbers. I feel like we've seen like special moments from Jeanty, but he hasn't really had a chance to be who he can really be because of the O-line. What are your guys' thoughts so far on how he's played and how much of his success does rely on the O-line really getting it together within the next few weeks, Q?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, you know, and this was the conversation we had going into the draft process, right? Are the Raiders ready for an Ashton Jeanty? And what I mean by that is the offensive line going to be capable of making him, you know, play to the level of his ability. We see flashes. We see big runs and a nice, you know, lower of the shoulder and run over a defender. We see him do that. We know he has it in him. But again, when you carry the rock 17 times and 11 times you're met at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage by a defender, you're already in a bad position going into, you know, trying to make something happen. He's making 1, 2, 3 guys miss trying to create anything. Also, that's a 1-2 yard gain. Right. And now, look, in the Mountain West, that would be, you know, probably a 40-yard gain. You probably take it to the house. But this is not the Mountain West. It's the NFL. It's you know, the toughest level of football that you're going to face. So he's getting a welcome to the league type moment. But again, the offensive line, it's going to be critical that they do better to help him out and show what he can do. And again, that goes back to, Brennan Carroll, is he the problem? Is it the offensive line? Is it a combination of the two? Like, I think the sample size isn't big enough to just know exactly where the number one problem is, right? I know that what we've seen from the offensive line hasn't been good. I know that Brennan Carroll's the coach of the offensive line. Obviously, with him having that Carroll last name, a lot of red flags are going to go up. And, is this guy qualified or not? Again, I think Lincoln said it best, don't really know that much about him. I know what his resume says, and we'll see. But he's tasked with the job, and Joe Philbin's tasked with the job with figuring it out, getting this offensive line to provide any kind of opportunity for Ashton Jeanty to be successful. And maybe it goes back to Lincoln's point. Maybe it's just as simple as don't line up in the pistol, right? Don't put him 8 yards in harm's way before he ever even gets an opportunity to get the ball in his belly. Maybe it's as simple as that, right? And maybe that can help out a little bit as well. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I'm not that guy, but I just know that something's got to be fixed. Ashton Jeanty is not a bust. People are calling him that already. He's not. He just doesn't really have an opportunity to thrive.
I remember, in evaluating a lot of these guys that are coming out of the draft and coming into the league, I remember seeing a line where Lamar Jackson, who I watched last night, I'm sure you guys did on Monday Night Football, where his offensive coordinator went back to Louisville and studied Louisville's film in the offseason, studied Louisville's offensive film to figure out what Lamar Jackson could do well.
Yep.
You might have to do that with somebody like Ashton Jeanty. You might have to figure out what runs Boise State had and see if you can implement them. What it's going to come down to, and this is always what it's been said, it's a matter of attitude. As an offensive lineman, if I'm going to go out there, and I saw great examples of it last night with the way those guys, both teams were running the football, push their defender, move their defender out of the way, or at least prevent them from penetrating, you have a good chance of getting in the line of scrimmage and making a big run. If you block everyone in the box, you have a good chance of doing that. The Raiders consistently have not done that over the past 3 weeks. And when they do, good things have happened. We've seen a couple of breakout runs. We've seen them get into the secondary. We've seen them, make people miss or even hit safeties, take it on the safeties. We've seen. So I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be fine. You've got to figure out your groove when it comes to this running game. You got to figure out what you do well, what runs you do well, and then you have to make that for him. And the starting point, as far as the pistol is concerned, that just goes back to thinking, well, what worked for you in Boise State?
Right.
Because the Raiders were never a good gun run team. But over the last couple of years, they've been trying to implement good gun runs.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? But there's so much. This is such a cookie cutter league. Everybody wants to take on what everybody else does. Does not always mean that it's good for them. That's why I believe Geno Smith should go up under center. I believe you go up under center, you allow things to happen in front of you rather than getting the ball, looking around, making sure you don't have to scramble before you can look down the field. Because that's what's happening out of the shotgun. The moment he gets the football, they're on top of him. And that pocket is collapsing. That can't happen. If you change the launching point or you change the starting point, in my opinion, take the ball from center. You have a 3, 5, possible 7-step drop. It allows your tackles to be able to set up better in space because now the aiming point for that defensive end is not 5 yards deep. It's now 3 yards deep. So he's taking a tighter angle, gives you a better chance of blocking him when he's in the box, and doesn't put you in a lot of space. DJ Glaze over the last couple of weeks has struggled with space. Yeah. We saw it against Von Miller, as Q talked about, one of the Hall of Famers. But he struggled with space with lesser opponents. It's going to be the same. As long as you keep him uncovered in a lot of these formations, he's going to struggle with that speed because he turns his shoulders right away to try to get back to block a guy. Now you're half as effective as an offensive line. You see what I'm saying? There are little things like that has to be coached. But it also comes from a standpoint from Chip Kelly saying, hey, you know what? Let's change things up. Let's not do shotgun anymore. Let's not do pistol anymore. Let's go under center. Let's go with a 2-back set. We don't have 2 backs, but let's try that. You know what I mean? If you're going to do something like that, but I do think they need a fullback. I do think if they had a 2-back system, that would be so much easier for the run. But they don't have a fullback. Fullbacks are not necessarily a household name anymore. So there are a lot of things that I can see making changes. It's hard to make changes week 4 though.
Right.
It's hard to make changes. These are things that you do in training camp, mini camps, maybe the bye week. But it's hard to make changes now. That's why I'm saying don't panic. We still got time.
Yeah, and I think just the criticisms that Jeanty's taken has been really unfair. You've had people say that he's a bust. You've had people say that he was overrated coming into the league. I think also a lot of frustration from Raiders fans is if you were going to draft running back 6th overall, it's like, why did you not address the O-line, right? That was probably
they thought they did.
Yeah,
I mean, 2 third-round picks, they thought they did. They put some effort into it, right? Chantel, am I wrong? I mean, it's not like you know what I mean. Go ahead, Kim.
They did, but like Charles Grant's coming from William and Mary, so we knew that he wasn't going to be a guy that was going to be ready right now. Like he, honestly, in my opinion, is going to basically take a redshirt year. Right. He may be available next year. And then Caleb Rogers, you bring him in, and yeah, he can compete, but he's also a young guy. So you're really putting a lot on the young guy to go slide in there and be available right away. I think that if you're going to draft Ashton Jeanty, and this was the conversation, again, the pros versus the cons, right? What are you going to do? Is drafting Jeanty at 6? Does that make sense? Is this offensive line the offensive line of the Eagles or the Ravens or the Packers? And the answer is obviously no. But a lot of people thought Jeanty's going to make this running game go from 32nd to top 10 because he's so good. He's a BYOB or bring your own blocker. And again, he is, but this is not college. This is the NFL. So it's a lot more difficult to be that guy who's that BYOBer and be successful consistently. He'll be able to break a few here and there on his own ability, but to be able to be consistently that really good back, that Saquon Barkley, that Josh Jacobs, that Derrick Henry, you need the big uglies in front of him to be able to handle their business. And so if you're going to go and invest that number 6 overall pick, I think that you definitely have to go out there and spend some money in free agency, bring in some quality free agents that are on the offensive line if they're out there and available and they don't grow on trees. There's a reason why they're free agents if they are free agents. And if not, then go out there and draft some guys that you think are plug and play immediately. For example, Jim Harbaugh takes over the Chargers, and who's the first pick he takes? Is it Malik Neighbors? No, he didn't take Malik Neighbors. He took Joe Alt because he said, my identity is going to be, we're going to run the ball and we're going to be the baddest in the land in the trenches. So we're going to go get the best offensive tackle there is out there available. And I know he plays left tackle and I know we have a really good one. We're going to kick him to the right side. He might not like it, but he's going to play it and he's going to play it well. And then look what happens. Slater goes down. Boom. Alt's back at his normal position. And the Chargers offensive line hasn't missed a beat. And by the way, they invested money. Every team in the AFC West, as far as the offensive line goes and the money and the dollars that are invested, they're all top 10. The Chiefs are number 2, the Broncos are number 7, and the Chargers are number 9. The Raiders, their investment in the offensive line is 28th. 28th in the league. And right now, the results are showing that.
More times than not, when you have a new coaching staff come in, they have to make an immediate splash, an immediate impact. That's why, you look the year before, you ended up getting Brock Bowers. And I thought the Raiders were going to take an offensive tackle that year. I was like, they got to take a tackle. They got to take a tackle. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, DJ Glaze played far better than anyone really expected him because going into that season, I thought Thayer Munford was the starting right tackle. So long story short, this regime, this coaching staff comes in and wants to make a splash with the number 6 pick, and they did, Ashton Jeanty. But if you do not address the offensive line, and I don't care who you go through around the National Football League, if you look at successful running teams, you look at the investment they put in their offensive line. It's essential. You can't have one without the other. You know what I mean? So, and there are very few teams that can be true passing teams. You remember the Kansas City Chiefs a few years back when they had their Super Bowl troubles. What did they do the following year? They went out and addressed their offensive line. What ended up happening? They ended up going back to the damn championship or back to the playoffs. And so, yes, there's a need there. And this coaching staff, not to say that they were naive, but in sense of doing their homework, but they put a little bit more trust than I would have in a lot of guys they did not know. I think Colton Miller is a capable tackle in this league. I think so. I think DJ Glaze is a capable tackle in this league, but I also think they both have limitations, as is the rest of this offensive line. And so what I would be looking at as a coaching staff is I need to figure out the way to bring the best out of these guys and then light a fire up under their ass and get them to do it. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's why I say you keep the same thing the same. And now I'm going to light a fire up in Dylan Parham. If you don't play better, you're going to be benched. These types of things are going to, Jordan Meredith, you got to make the right call. You cannot have a will linebacker shooting the backside B gap on the downside dive. You can't do that. So you got to make the right call to get him blocked. These things have to happen, and they have to happen sooner rather than later.
Right. And that was really my big surprise when we met with Pete Carroll on yesterday, and he was asked about the offensive line, and he said, hey, we're looking to get JPJ back. And so my question was, because he said after the game, competition's still open. My follow-up was, so does that mean competition's open on the offensive line only at the right guard spot, or possibly for everyone on the offensive line? If for no other reason, linking to what you said, just light a fire under their ass, right? If you got someone coming for your job, whether they're capable of taking it or not, you have to step your game up. And he said the right guard spot. So I interpreted that as, okay, there's only competition between JPJ and Alex Kappa, and not Dylan Parham and someone else, and Jordan Meredith and someone else, and DJ Glaze and someone else. And, I think everyone to the right of Colton Miller needs to definitely have, some competition behind him. And you might even want to put a little competition behind Miller to make him step his game up. He's a good offensive lineman. He's been a good, solid offensive lineman. He's never been a Pro Bowler. Just saying.
All right. And so obviously they've been dealing with a bunch of protection issues, and we saw that on Monday Night Football, and then we saw it again in Washington. And, at one point, a lot of people were getting down about Geno. But if you take a look at his numbers in this game, you would think that, hey, Geno might have had a pretty decent game. He went, 19 for 29. So very efficient, threw for 289 yards, no interceptions. He had 3 touchdowns, but this was the number. He got sacked 5 times. Right. He was pressured a lot. He got sacked 5 times. What were you guys' thoughts on Geno's performance in this game? Obviously, like, they tried to make, a late run. So those numbers a little bit different. But Link, did you think Geno played a little bit better considering how he played on Monday Night Football?
It was so hard to gauge whether or not he played better or not. He didn't have any time. Literally, when he's setting up, there's somebody in his lap. Or I saw a couple of plays where Geno was looking down at the rush, trying to see where everybody's coming from before he looked down the field. That is an ultimate no-no. If a quarterback cannot look down the field and keep his eyes down the field, there's something wrong around him. He never got comfortable.
Right.
He never got comfortable. They never got into a rhythm. It wasn't like the week before where they went 19 plays and only came over the field goal. They never got into a rhythm in the series, in the drive. A couple big plays here, a couple quick strikes, but never really got into a true rhythm. And that's why I go back to the beginning, starting off from behind the 8 ball. Even though it was a kickoff return and defense is first thing out there, it still sets a bad taste in your mouth because now it changes everything around you. It changes everything from the offensive dynamic. I got to score a touchdown. I got to make sure we get in. We can't settle for threes. We know what we're up against. All these things play into coaching your mind when it goes that way. But, Geno never really got in a rhythm. I can't fault him. I can't blame him. Never really got in a rhythm. It starts up front, guys. Goes back to the run game and everything else. This offensive line was incapable. And it was hard for me to watch. It was a hard pill for me to watch because they couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything. They started off in the hole so many times. I looked up, it's 2nd down and 12 or 2nd down and 10, 3rd down and 9. Come on now. You can't be successful. You got to stay ahead of the chains. Even when they did, something stupid would happen, like a penalty or something would back them up, make things harder, or an incompletion or a bad drop or whatever. It just was no flow. There was no flow to the game. It really was hard to watch.
The game was really summarized in 3 categories, right? The offensive line play was terrible, right? The special teams unit was terrible. Giving up the kickoff to return to Deebo Samuel, then obviously a punt return touchdown later on in the game. Special teams was awful. And by the way, the defense gave up massive big plays, right? I mean, so every unit of the team, right, was bad. And so that's going to result in a blowout loss. And again, even on paper, after it's all said and done, if you're just checking the box score, you're like, oh, 41-24. I guess it wasn't that bad. No, it was that bad. It wasn't even that close, right? I mean, there was points that were scored, and Tre Tucker, I feel bad for him because he had a big game as far as numbers go. It was his career best, and really it was overshadowed because it was a blank show of a game. I mean, it was terrible. And there's no other way to put it. You can't put lipstick on a pig and think it's not going to be a pig. It's still a pig. And that was exactly what that was. Unfortunately, the Raiders have to learn from it. They have to come back, realize it's only week 3, and they have an opportunity to go 2-2 and be 500 after 4 games if they can win on Sunday against the Chicago Bears. But obviously that's a big if. They've got a lot to clean up in the meantime.
Q, what shade of lipstick is that? I'm just curious.
It don't even matter.
It might be a good-looking pig. You never know. Hey, good look.
It don't even matter. The best-looking pig is called bacon, right?
I've actually never heard that before. You put lipstick on a pig. That's a good one. And also, the Bears look really good against Dallas.
That means you're young. You just told me your age.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard that before. But I will say this: that like I said, like, the Bears looked really good against Dallas. Yeah. And so I think that's going to be a very, very tough game for them at home. You mentioned special teams, guys. You mentioned the defense, and we're going to get into that in this next final segment. Also, keep those comments and questions coming because we will ask Q and Link before the show ends. So Raider Nation, keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Guys, special teams looked awful, right? And I think sometimes special teams isn't a focus, but this proves how important special teams is because it can change the game, and it changed the momentum of the game right away at the beginning of the game. What were your guys' thoughts on special teams, and what did they have to do to make adjustments to kind of clean that up, Q?
I was actually surprised that the special teams was as bad as it was. I didn't expect that unit to look like that. And again, it was one of those, oh, here we go moments as soon as the kickoff happened, right? And I know that Daniel Carlson is trying to work on this, dynamic kickoff. And, Debo returning at 69 yards wasn't necessarily on Daniel Carlson, but I don't even think his placement's been fantastic just on his kickoffs lately. I think he's trying to work on it and trying to pinpoint the ball, and it just hasn't been working very well. But the coverage, man, being in your lanes, being where you're supposed to be, the old saying, do your job, and it sounds boring, and we laugh at Bill Belichick when he said all the time, all you got to do is do your job. That's literally what the Raiders did not do on special teams on Sunday. They did not do their job. They did not have, their lane integrity. They were not where they were supposed to be. And I'm telling you, and I know that it wouldn't be realistic, but some of those holes on the kickoff returns for Washington looked like I could have ran through it. And I know that I couldn't have. I'm not foolish. I know that I couldn't have, but it looked like it was huge. Chantel, like you said, you play on Madden, and that's when you play with the offensive line. Well, on Madden, I could have took it to the house because those gaps were huge. I was thinking, how is this possible? How is the middle of the field wide open? And then obviously you see them return one to the house as well. Special teams was a complete breakdown. It just, again, it felt like, and you brought it up last week, it felt like one of those traditional 10 a.m. kickoffs for the Raiders on the East Coast that none of us ever liked, but I felt like they got away from that. And that, again, is an excuse, but that's just what it felt like. It felt like one of those that we got so accustomed to seeing from the Raiders where they basically sleepwalked through the first three quarters, and it felt like it was very similar to that on Sunday.
And that's why it was so disheartening, the fact when you look at the game and what the Commanders did on the other side, they gave the Raiders opportunities to stay in the game. Before it was a blowout, there were many opportunities for the Raiders to stay in the game. You get a turnover, you force out you get a block, a missed field goal, things like that. Come on now. You had every opportunity to get back into this game, to get in a rhythm. And this is where I talk about the effort, because the effort let me down. The effort let me down in a lot of ways. It let me down in special teams. It let me down in angles as far as defensive tackling. It also let me down the way the offensive line play. Effort. It all comes back to effort. There's only so much that coaches can do to get players ready before you have to stand up and say, you know what? I'm a professional. This is my job. Let me go out there and do it. But because they weren't able to get it in a rhythm, and it was started by the special teams, then it added to the defense, and then it carried over to the offense. With this team not being a very good offensive team, you need the other two factors to be the main staples. I said when we did our schedule breakdown, there's probably one or two games I'm going to get to the side of the defense or the special teams just for the way that they play. Well, in the Chargers game, the defense played outstanding.
Right.
Offense couldn't get anything done. Special teams can only do what they did. This past week, defense fell off. Special teams fell off. Offense had never really caught up. Disaster in week 3. As we come to week 4, Chicago Bears are a beatable team. But here's the thing, Chantel. I will say this, and I said this all along. The Raiders can't be comfortable with anybody beatable teams.
Right.
Because the Raider hasn't really beaten anybody. You don't win a game over New England and sit there and, rah, get smoked by the Chargers. Then you come back and get smoked by the Commanders, who are half a team, and sit there and say, well, we need to worry, or we don't have to worry about this team. We don't have to worry about that. They're not there yet.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned the defense. They gave up 41 points. They gave up over 150 yards on the ground before the second half. Like, this was, a defense I think that we felt like played pretty decent in the second half of the pass game. And, they did what they could against the Chargers. Like, it was like, I think the one bright spot, but they didn't look like they were prepared either for this game. What were your guys' thoughts on the defense, and where do you think the biggest adjustments have to be made?
I was just surprised in general, right? Because the defense to me had been the strength, allowing only 16 points a game. I think, okay, cool, that's winnable, right? You can win games if your defense is only allowing 16 points, not allowing a 100-yard rushing attack from any teams. And look, I get it was only 2 games in the season, so you can only work with what you're working with. But, man, to give up, like you said, over 150 yards in the first half on the ground and have so many missed tackles and 4 plays that went for more than 40-plus yards, like they just had nothing but defensive breakdowns throughout the course of the game. And like Lincoln said, the Commanders still tried to keep them in the game. They were only down 10 at halftime. Thomas Booker came up with a big, a forced fumble on Marcus Mariota after he had a nice little scramble. Caillou Blue Kelly comes up with it. Okay, you got the Raiders the ball back in pretty good territory, right? And you're not really able to do anything with it. It's just they had so many opportunities to make a game out of it and really turn things around and leave DC. It's like, man, I don't know how we got that dub, but we did. And they just couldn't figure out how to get anything going. But the defense to me was a big disappointment, and they had played better. Again, stopping the run was their strength, and all that was out the window on Sunday. It was just a complete breakdown from every unit of this team. Just that simple. That's how you give up 41 points and get blown out by the Commanders with their backup quarterback in there.
I would have felt a lot better if the Raiders defense was able to shut down the run of the Commanders. I would have felt a lot better because I knew without a doubt there was a good chance Mariota was going to blow it. I knew it. I knew that he was going to throw it to the wrong team or put it in harm's way or whatever. If it was going to fall on his shoulders, he's not a capable quarterback in the sense where he could pass like 40, 50 times a game like he used to back in the day. I don't think he's that player. But the Raiders allowed him out with the run game. And then you allowed him to use his legs as part of the run game too, and some of those designated quarterback runs. That was the most disheartening part about it. Other than special teams are going to have their times. But I just hope those special teamers take it more seriously, because now you see what other teams around the league are trying to do. They're starting to get an advantage off of this dynamic kickoff. So kickers have to be better where they place the ball, how much hang time they give their guys a chance to get down there. You cannot have that much space, because the thing is, when you look back on that kickoff return to start the game, guys, look how much room Deebo Samuel had between catching the football and before he met anyone possible in a different Raider jersey. How much of a running headroom he had, the speed he had, got up to speed by the time he met anybody.
Yep.
Yeah. So from top to bottom, it's a terrible game for the Raiders, and hopefully they'll be able to regroup for this Sunday against the Bears. And on Thursday, we are going to be breaking down that game. Let's get to some questions, guys. This one came from Darth Jader. Do you guys think SpyTech starts hitting the trade wire for O-line help?
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go in that direction. John SpyTech is a guy that, as he said many times, really, he covets his draft capital. I don't think that he's going to go in that direction right now. I think that what he's going to attempt to do, whether it's going to be successful or not, he's going to try to draft and develop, right? And so he's going to say, this is what we've got, just like Pete Carroll said to us yesterday. This is who we have. This is what we're working with. And then they're going to continue to address this team and try to improve it throughout the course of the offseason. And unfortunately, the offseason ain't coming no time soon for this team to try to find those kind of improvements, because they're just wrapping up week 3. So they got a long season to go before they really get an opportunity to go and try to build this team up. I don't see John SpyTech going and trading for an offensive lineman. If anything, at some point in the season, if things are going off the rails, he may start trading some players away from the team to collect more draft capital, in my opinion.
All my offensive linemen that are my family, they're all taken. I'm not playing. There's nobody available. There's nothing available. The streets are bare. You're not gonna find a good, capable offensive lineman sitting on the couch somewhere. It's not going to happen. And the thing is that offensive linemen need to be trained into what they do. So you got to get someone in there and get them up to speed by having padded practice. Oh, but wait, there's only how many padded practices allowed in the season? How many was it? 13 or 14? Okay, we're already in week 3 in the season, so we probably lost about 6 of those practices. Right. How many padded practices can you have a true offensive lineman, Chantel, play offensive lineman, never putting on pads, just playing in shirts and helmets? No. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, you can search the trade wire, but there's not offensive linemen that are sitting out there. General manager, yeah, I've got a gaggle full of offensive linemen. I can't wait to trade away. No, it's not happening. It takes a little bit longer to develop. So to answer your question, there's nothing available out there. You have to harness from within. This is what you have.
Okay, let's go again at Darth Jader, because he had some good ones. He says, what are the odds there's going to be another players only meeting? Does that happen anytime soon? There was the first one?
Was there already one?
I didn't know there was a first one.
But I didn't hear anything about a first one either.
Neither did I. I mean, look, people want to go in the locker room a lot of times and want to see, what's going in the head of players. Players just want to win. I do know that, being a former player. And when things are disastrous, falling apart, I was on a team that the coaching staff lost the locker room. And I don't want to speak ill of him, because he's a good friend of mine, Joe Bugle, former head coach, offensive line coach, one of the best offensive line coaches I ever played for. He lost the locker room very early in that season, and I saw it. And we held players only meetings and stuff like that as a captain, and we tried to bring it in and try to bring it in circle wagons. No, it was gone. The Raiders aren't there yet. Right. So the first and foremost, to hold a players only meeting, who would hold it? Colton Miller, Max Crosby, probably. But I mean, I don't know how AJ Cole is in the locker room or Daniel Carlson is in the locker room. I don't know if it comes through anything like that. But who's going to? This is a very young team.
Yeah,
this is a young team that has not had a lot of collective experience. Now you've had guys that came from other teams, but what can they say about this team? You're still building this team. It takes longer than a couple of months, which most of these guys have only had together a few months. It takes longer than that to build a team. So I don't know. I didn't hear about the first players only meeting if there was one. I don't know who holds this one. I don't know what can be said other than look in the mirror. We need to pick it up.
Yeah, I can't imagine they threw a players only meeting when their team was 1-1 going into Sunday.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, too soon. Jeremiah Hernandez says, if we knew that rookies weren't going to be ready, why didn't we go pick up some more vets as a Band-Aid until next season? We're talking about players that we moved back to get. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, they went out and got Kappa. I just said they went out and got the linebackers, EB and those guys. And I mean, I don't, people make it seem like there's just a plethora on the trade wire or available. It just doesn't work like that.
No, they didn't spend very much money in free agency, period. Right. I mean, if you look at it, look where their money was given. Jeremy Chin got a 2-year deal. E-Rob got a 1-year deal. Devin White got a 1-year deal. Jamal Adams got a 1-year deal. Eric Stokes got a 1-year deal. I mean, you see the theme going on here. Alex Kappa got a 2-year deal. They didn't spend any money, and they let a lot of guys walk that did cost a lot of money, right? In Robert Spillane, Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Merrick, right? Other guys like that were going to get big free agent deals. They let walk. Their goal when they took over this team was not to spend a whole lot of money in free agency. I think that they want to evaluate, break down what they have. Again, this is a new staff with this team. Really break it down, see what they have, see what works, and then move forward. If you saw what John Spytek was a part of in Tampa Bay after Tom Brady, they turned that roster over completely. It was the youngest team in football, and they had a lot of guys out there contributing very early on. I think that's the same vision, while Pete Carroll at the same time wants to win right now. Like he said, I'm trying to win as many games as possible. And so they're trying to blend those two ideas. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a bumpy road. It's only, again, after week 3. So I don't want to say what the road is like. I don't say exactly what the Raiders are going to do, heading up to the trade deadline. Like I said, if things get off the rails, maybe they go in a direction of moving a couple players, but things are not off the rails yet. They're only 1-2, and they have an opportunity to go 500 on Sunday.
I guess, and just real quick, Chantel, before I let you go, they still got plenty of time. There's still a lot of season left. We weren't expecting these guys to go undefeated, so let's give them a break.
Yeah, for sure. And, some positivity from you guys. So I think that's good. We'll be back on Thursday, and we'll be breaking down the Raiders and the Bears. So the guys are saying, don't hit the panic button just yet. They're just 1-2. And don't be like me and start building your draft board, because I started doing that after the game. Don't do that yet. No, don't be like me, Raider Nation. All right, we'll be back on Thursday, y'all. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back on Thursday.